Good morning, everyone. I'm going to give people a minute or two to join in before I start, but I know that there's a couple first-time Zoomers out there. So before we get started, I wanted to show you two of the features you might be using today during my talk. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat box with a speech bubble icon. Why don't you go ahead and type your name if you'd like to and where you're listening from today. I'm going to type my email address just in case you have any questions after the presentation. All right, give it one more minute. The other thing I'll be doing is answering questions after my talk. So if you notice at the bottom of your screen again, there's a Q&A icon with two speech bubbles. So if you have any questions about the restoration project or about what I do at the Historical Society or the Historical Society in general, you can type those in during the presentation, and hopefully I'll be able to get to all of those or most of them at the end of my talk. All right, wow, we got someone from New Jersey, Fort Mill, South Carolina, Michigan. It's fantastic. Miami. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to Feline Facelift, Marco Island Historical Society's first Zoom talk. My name's Heather Otis. I'm the collections manager here, and collections are a huge part of our mission, which is to preserve and share the history and heritage of Marco Island and the surrounding community. So a big part of my job is the preserve part of the mission, which is taking care of all of our artifacts. We have an estimated 50,000 at the Historical Society that are under my care. And museum professionals do this by practicing what's called preventive conservation. So in a nutshell, it's hoping to maintain our artifacts by providing stable storage and a controlled environment, both in storage and while the artifacts are on display, to minimize damage and deterioration in the long run. Sometimes though, objects need a little bit of extra help, and this is where conservation comes in. Unless it's something really simple that I can do in-house, we usually contract out a conservator to do a treatment. In rare cases, museums might restore an object, which means you take it a step further and bring it back to its original condition or original state. And that's what we ended up doing this spring with the largest object in our collections. So while I pull up my slides, I'm going to give you your first poll, really simple, so you can test it out. Have you ever visited the museum? All right. It looks like, and I'll share it with all of you, looks like most people, 83% in fact, have visited the museum multiple times, which is great news. That means that you have definitely seen the object we're going to be talking about today, which is our Key Marco cat bronze sculpture on the right here. So the sculpture itself is on our campus. You can't miss it when you walk in. It's roughly 6 feet tall, not including the base, and it was commissioned by the Historical Society in April 2009, and it was a generous gift of Gail and Emil Fisher. The sculpture itself was completed in early 2010, which is the same year that the museum opened, so it's been on campus ever since the museum has, and it's been a staple here. And it was actually one of the last pieces that Carl Wagner did before he passed away. On the left here, you see the Key Marco cat statuette, which is all of 6 inches tall. And that's what our sculpture is modeled after. So why would we have a sculpture modeled after this artifact? Well, the artifact itself, we're lucky enough to have it at the museum on loan from the Smithsonian Institution until April 2021. And it's widely considered to be one of the finest pieces of pre-Columbian Native American art ever discovered in North America. And it was excavated here on Marco Island by Smithsonian anthropologist Frank Hamilton Cushing and his team in 1896. So people believe that it was carved by the Calusa or Muspa people from native hardwood, and it's dated to be anywhere between 500 and 1500 years old. So you think about it, it's made of wood, and that's one of the incredible things about it. It's really rare to find perishable artifacts in the archaeological record that are this old, but lucky for us, the Key Marco cat was able to stay preserved because it was buried in an oxygen-free layer of muck, along with other Key Marco artifacts. Some of those artifacts, when they dug them up, they actually started disintegrating on site as soon as they were exposed to air. But if you look at the cat, it looks like it could have been carved yesterday, which is really incredible. So the cat figurine is really a symbol of the rich history of Marco Island that has dates back 6,000 years. So let me do our second poll. I want to see how many of you have actually seen the cat statuette here at the museum. All right. Most people. So the our sculpture is not only significant because it represents our famous piece of history, but it's also beloved by staff and visitors and an island icon. I'm gonna, in the poll, looks like 32 of you, so about 91% have actually seen the cat at the museum. No one has seen it somewhere else. And about 11% have never seen the artifact. So that's pretty good. And if you haven't, like I said, it's here till 2021. But, whoops. So it's basically 99% of the time, if you visit the museum, you will most likely take a photo op with the Key Marco cat going in or on your way out as a memento of your visit to the museum or your trip to Marco Island. So it's really a special piece, and it's something that we wanted to restore, and it's also a part of our collection, so we have a responsibility for its care. So let me tell you why we need to get it restored. So some of you were here for this. Luckily, I wasn't. I didn't come till 2019, but on September 10th, 2017, Hurricane Irma hit Marco Island directly as a Category 3, bringing in storm surges of 3 to 4 feet, winds of 125 miles per hour, and there was a lot of damage, including damage to our bronze sculpture. Staff noticed shortly after the hurricane that there was pitting to the protective surface coat of the sculpture, and once that pitting started, or that damage started, it progressed rapidly. So I'll show you on the left here is the sculpture pre-Irma, about 8 months before the hurricane hit. And then on the right here is a picture from fall 2019. So you can see the progression of the damage. So what causes damage to outdoor sculpture? A lot of people think that sculpture is permanent You can leave it outside. You don't do anything to it. It's good for life. But sculpture, like any other object, is susceptible to deterioration and decay. It's just a little bit more sturdy than some other things that you might find. So what causes damage? Well, some of the big culprits are salt, which we live on a tropical island here, surrounded by salt water. Moisture, we got the Florida humidity and the daily storms during the summer. UV radiation, we're in the sunshine state. Wind erosion, we definitely get wind here. Air pollution, acid rain, not so much. You'd probably typically see this more in sculptures in the city or sculptures that are closer to well-traveled roads. You get the car pollution there. Natural disasters, we talked about Irma. And then extreme humidity and temperature are exceptionally, can be exceptionally damaging to coating and can cause coating issues. So we have those too. So even though Marco Island is a beautiful tropical paradise for us to live in, it's not the ideal home for bronze sculpture. Let me show you. So these are some up close documentation photos I took pre-restoration. And you can see that the color in the outer coating is completely gone in large areas, and the bronze is exposed. You can see right here especially, it's just flaking right off, and you can see corrosion starting to occur to the bronze, which is something you don't want. Oh, and I didn't mention the human element. Among all the pitting here that the staff initially saw, we got some baked on bubble gum. So all of this is more than we could handle in-house. So we needed to contract the work out. But how do you find a conservator? Well, there's a couple ways. If you're for sculpture, the first option is usually to contact the artist, but we couldn't do that in this case since Carl Wagner passed away. So a lot of times museum professionals start at the American Institute for Conservation's Find a Conservator portal, which is an amazing resource. You can find conservators that are geographically close to you, and they'll list their specialties. So it could be for any type of conservation projects. In terms of art conservation and restoration, you can also contact an art gallery, specifically one maybe that specializes in the type of art that you're looking to get treated. I contacted Fine's Gallery up in Bonita Springs because they dealt with sculpture. Usually they have a conservator or a restorer on hand that they can contact if something's damaged in shipment, or if they need to get it touched up before they sell the object. And then lastly, this is specific to bronze sculpture, but you can reach out to a bronze foundry, which is a workshop for bronze sculptors. And I reached out to Bronze Art Foundry in Sarasota, and that's how I got in contact with our conservation team. So this is them. On the left is Kohler. He's the team lead. He's been a bronze sculptor for over 35 years and also has decades worth of experience in art conservation and restoration. And this is his partner, JC Del Rio. Same thing, he's a bronze sculptor and an art conservator. And this is Joe Portner in the middle, and he was a specialist that Casey called in for the project. And I'll talk about him a little bit more later. And all this wouldn't be possible without the amazing Gail Fisher. You might recognize her name. She and her husband were the ones who gifted the sculpture back in 2009. And she was incredible and sponsored the entire restoration project, which when I found out, I almost wanted to cry because this project's been in the works since the fall of 2019. And with this year especially, I never thought that we would get this project completed and get the funding for it. So thank you, Gail, if you're listening out there. And thank you to everyone who's contributed to the Historical Society this year and years past. We really couldn't do it without you, and we appreciate you all. So you might have noticed that the sculpture is brown, just like the statuette. And there's two ways to add color to the sculpture. One is painting it, and then another is to add a patina. So what's the difference? Well, I think you all know what paint is, but a patina is specific to metal. So it's actually, instead of adding color on top like you would with paint, you actually create a chemical reaction to change the actual surface of the bronze or the metal that you're working with. And based on the compound that you use, you can pick out what color that you want the patina to be. So these are samples of colors that some of the bronze sculptors have used at Bronze Art Foundry in Sarasota. So there's a wide range. It's typically applied when the bronze is really hot. And after this, it's sealed with a wax or a clear lacquer or both to protect that look and protect the bronze over time. So the top here is an example of a added patina, or patinas, I should say, by an artist. And then below is an example of a natural patina. So you all know the Statue of Liberty, but you might not know that it wasn't always green. When she was first constructed, she was made of copper, and she was actually a reddish brown color, and it took 30 years for that Liberty green patina to develop that we know and love today. So how is copper related to bronze? Well, bronze is roughly 88% copper. So that process is the same. So if we left a bronze sculpture outside with no added patina on it, it would eventually develop a beautiful greenish blue color on the surface of the bronze. So I want to see if you think that our sculpture has a patina, or is it painted to be brown? Oh, looks pretty neck and neck. I'm gonna give it one more second. All right, let me share it with you. It looks like we are almost tied, and that makes me feel a lot better because we originally thought that our sculpture had a patina, which made it brown, but it turns out that it was painted. So the restoration process was a little bit different than we thought initially. So let me get into that. I got to spend 10 days with the conservation team and watch them work, ask them a lot of questions, and it was a really great experience. Day one, they needed to get that paint off the bronze. So they ended up applying 2 coats of paint stripper, which you see JC and Joe doing. Casey, you'll notice he's supervising. He usually is more hands-on, but he had just had knee replacement surgery 10 days before the project started. So he had to sit a lot. And then after the paint stripper loosened the paint, they went over it with a wool pad and acetone to start removing it, and also a handheld grinder with a sanding wheel, and lightly sanded it off without pushing down too hard, because you don't want to affect the bronze work. So while all this was going on, Casey was spraying it down constantly with water to wash off the chemicals that they used, and also to wash off that removed paint. So here you can start to see that bronze underneath. It was really, really fun to watch. And after hours of work, they were able to remove all the paint, and this is what the cat looks like with nothing on it. So day 2, they came back and they were going to start painting, but they had the paint all picked out, matched to Carl Wagner's color. But like I told you earlier, we have the cat statuette in the museum right now. So they all wanted to see it. I took them in, they all gathered around really close, looking at the cat, and they kept looking and they started whispering to each other. And then they turned around, they were like, Heather, that's not the color of the cat. We think we can do better. Let us try to match it. And so with our permission, they went back to the specialty paint store and got a custom color. They weren't allowed to take pictures of the cat, but we had some promotional pictures that we gave them. So I put these pictures in, even though they didn't do any work day 2. You can see that just from less than 24 hours of exposure to the outside conditions, that the color of the bronze is starting to change. Okay, so day 3, they came back and they painted for real this time. This was Joe's day. I didn't want to give it away, but Joe is a professional painter. He does some really cool work, like recreating the faux marble fireplaces and historic homes, things like that. So he, like anything, whether you're painting a house or painting a car, you want to start with that primer coat. So that's what Joe did first, and this is what the cat looked like after. Like me before the beach. And then this is Joe adding that first base color layer. So this is the computer matched color. We were all a little surprised. It turned out a little more terracotta than they were initially hoping. So they went back to the drawing board for the second color coat and problem solved, and they found a color that would work to still recreate the color of the cat correctly. And they ended up with a Van Dyke brown glazing, which you'll see in a minute. So the next day, day 4, they came back and Joe started applying that glazing that you see, but the sculpture was so hot that day. This is around June 1st, that the sculpture baked on the glazing and they couldn't manipulate it. So they stopped and they came back really early day 5 when it was relatively cooler, and Joe applied the colored glaze over with a rag to get in the grooves, and then he feathered it out with a brush to create that wood-like effect. So this is Joe here, and he's working on the eyes. You might notice that the Kimerko cat statuette, the artifact, doesn't have gold eyes, but our sculpture did, and it's kind of become part of the piece's look, and we wanted to honor that. So we kept the gold eyes, but we upgraded them with real gold leaf paint, and they turned out to be really beautiful and really bright. So Joe ended up, you can see him here, he's toning them down a little bit with the brown glaze to make them a little bit more antique looking. And lastly, for the painting, they added 2 clear coats that would protect the bronze and the paint underneath. And the first one's special because it has a flattening agent in it, and that was the last step that Joe did to make it look more like wood. And then the top clear coat had more of a satin finish to add a little bit of shine. So this is a close-up of how he used paint to make it look a little bit more like the wood of the actual artifact. So on the left here, we have our original Carl Wagner piece, and then in the middle is the artifact. And then on the right is what the sculpture looked like after day 5 of the restoration. So you can see it's got that warmer, almost reddish tone that the wood has in the real artifact, and it looks a little bit more like wood grain. And finally, day 8, JC came back after all the paint had cured, and he added a protective wax that's typical in sculpture maintenance. So wax on, wax off. In day 10, the restoration was complete. The last thing that JC did is he came back and he repainted the base. So the sculpture looked beautiful from top to bottom. And here's a 360 view of the completed restoration. So at the MAHS, we want to make sure that the sculpture looks this beautiful for years and years to come. So this spring I started a sculpture maintenance program, which involves regular cleaning and waxing of the sculpture. Typically this is done 2 to 3 times a year for bronze sculptures, but since Florida's conditions are so harsh, I'm going to try to do it every 3 months. So on the left here was the conservation team, specialists that we contract out. On the right is people who can do maintenance, which is people like me and you. Just with a little bit of training, you can volunteer to be a part of the sculpture maintenance program here. So if you want to contribute your time, but don't think you can give regular hours like the front desk or the gift shop, this might be a good way for you to help out. It would just be every 3 or 6 months. And if you enjoy working with your hands, this could also be a good opportunity for you to give back. So you can reach out to learn more, or if you think you're interested, by contacting me through my email or just calling the Historical Society's main line. So the sculpture restoration was some good news for the collections department and the Historical Society. And at the same time, we have a Bricks of Honor program that's going to pave the way to the newly restored cat and around it. So if you're looking for an opportunity to give back and a way to leave your mark on Marco, this could be a fun option for you. I know my family just sponsored a brick for my Nana. She wasn't able to make it down to visit me before she passed this year, but she's with me in spirit now, and she made her way to Marco. Other people have commemorated when they found Marco, when their history began. So that's something to think about. If you are interested in helping us continue our mission in other ways, you can check out our website at themihs.org, especially the Get Involved and Donate tabs. And if you're interested in maybe a special project, we have our beautiful selfie scene mural by artist JJ Stinchcomb, and there's only, I believe, 2 elements left for sponsorship. So you can call our executive director, Pat Rutledge, at 239-389-6447 if you want to learn more about that. I just want to say thank you for listening, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I can answer some of those questions that you all have. Oh my goodness, we have 5. Do you need to apply the final clear coating on a regular basis? The final clear coating should last for years and years, but that is one of the things that you might need to get done more than once, specifically by a conservator. because it'll be the first thing that you'll see that's damaged. A lot of bronze sculptures might not have that clear coating. They might actually have a protective wax instead, and that's something that you would definitely apply regularly. What do you use to clean the sculpture now? Well, it's a great question. You actually use liquid ivory dish soap. That is the secret ingredient to keeping your sculpture happy. And you can use you gently soap it up with a soft bristled brush and then spray it clean. And then let it dry and then apply the wax. Let's see. Did anything else in your collections get damaged in Hurricane Irma? No, luckily. I wasn't here, but I know that the staff, both the Historical Society and the Historical Museum staff, we have a plan in place, and they implemented that plan back in 2017 to protect the collections. That involves everything from moving collections that are below 3 feet up off the ground, covering collection shelves with protective sheeting, covering the museum exhibits and those that are on display with sheeting. Also putting flood bumpers along the doors, lots of different stuff like that. So luckily we didn't have any damage, so I'm hopeful that if we survived Irma, we should be good with the same plan for years to come. How much did the restoration cost? The restoration cost $5,000. If the sculpture had a patina and it needed to be repatinated, it would have been more, because that involves an intensive process with a lot of heat, because the patina needs to be, the chemical reaction needs that heat to work. How often will this procedure need to be done in the future? Well, according to our conservation team, it should be good. We just need to keep it maintained, which we're doing now. And barring any unforeseen circumstances, it should really be good for a long time. I mean, Hurricane Irma was an exceptional circumstance. It was just too much for the sculpture. All right. We got more. How do they keep the original Marco cat from perishing? Is it in a sealed case? Oh, that's a really good question, because you're thinking the oxygen-free environment kept it safe. They keep it safe, or we keep it safe as part of our loan agreement by making sure that the temperature and the humidity inside the case stays constant and stays at an ideal temperature and humidity for the artifact. With wood especially, if you get the fluctuations in temperature and humidity, it can cause damage. Think of like your wood floors or furniture, right? But also we limit the light while it's on display. And when it's off display, the Smithsonian has a special storage case that they keep it in, just like any of our objects back here. So preventive conservation is key. Did you consider leaving, did you consider leaving it, whoa, look at that. Sorry, I missed the question. Did you consider leaving it to weather into a patina color? For this piece, we didn't, because we wanted to honor the sculpture's original look that was given by the artist. But I mean, it would be kind of neat to see a blue-green cat on campus. Has the date in April 2021 for the Marco cat be returned, is it set or is it still to be determined? If set, what is that date? It's not set. Like any loan from an institution, you can always try to renew a loan, and that's something that we are considering here. Nothing's finalized yet though, but at the very earliest, like if a loan renewal doesn't happen, the cat is here until April 15th, 2021. What else do you love about working at the MIHS? Oh, that's a sweet question. I love working with the people here. It's just a wonderful, nice staff members. The volunteers are so friendly. Board members. I also love, one of the things about working at a smaller institution like the Historical Society is that's relatively new, is that there's a lot of potential for projects that you can do. And like we're working on our first, like a lot of firsts. So before I got here, they had their first collections management policy in place. And now I'm working on completing the first complete inventory of collections, things like that. So it's, I'm really, really loving it. And it doesn't hurt to be on a tropical island either. Let's see. Oh, you guys are so good with all the questions. Let's see. Do you have many collections volunteers? We don't. We have had some volunteers in the past, and we do have a regular summer internship program that's paid. But currently we're limiting the volunteers because of the pandemic. So, but I'm always looking for people who are interested in volunteering in the future. There's definitely some things that for all skill levels, all knowledge bases in terms of collections. So please reach out to me if you're feeling interested in volunteering in the future. I could probably find something for you. All right, I think I answered all the questions. So if you think of any more, or if you have any comments about maybe future topics for Zoom talks, please feel free to reach out to me. We'd love to hear them. And there's also going to be an email going out, I believe, tomorrow with my email address in case you forget it, that you can use to send me those questions or comments. So thank you everyone for joining me, and I hope you and your family are safe and healthy wherever you are, and keep updated on our social media and website for upcoming programming. Have a wonderful day.